Hello from Strasbourg. I expected this week to be something of an anticlimax after a weekend in which David Cameron has seemingly accepted the demand for a referendum on Britain's continued membership of the EU is growing. On my way back to Strasbourg this week, I was interviewed on the BBC News about a petition for a referendum on withdrawal from the EU. These are exciting times and we must keep the pressure on the government. I dismissed Cameron's faux promise as blatant populism and called on him to show strong leadership and call an in or out referendum sooner rather than later. However, this has been a week in which we have seen Commission President Barroso launch an unprecedented and scathing attack on British MEPs. This was in order to turn attention in the debate away from the ever-growing woes of the Eurozone. It seems that when things go wrong, the political elite like to identify a scapegoat and pin the blame on anyone else. Barroso is not the first European politician to play that game, as we all know. We were then addressed by President Dimitris Christophas of Cyprus, whose country has taken over the rotating 6-month presidency of the European Union. He is the first ever communist head of state of the EU, and I asked him how he can reconcile his strongly held ideology with the austerity measures now being forced upon millions of European workers by the European Union. I reminded him of some of the graffiti in Athens, which read, "Refuse to live as slaves." I also suggested that as Turkey is refusing to recognise our communicate with the Cypriot Council presidency, perhaps now would be the right moment to put an end to Turkish aspirations to join the European Union, as they have again proven themselves incapable of engaging in the appropriate manner. Britain again came under fire, this time from a Cypriot MEP, Ioannis Kazouladis, who criticised the presence of British bases on Cyprus and accused Britain of being a colonialist and responsible for the problem. I pointed out to him that without the presence of those bases, Turkish forces could have advanced much further in 1974. I will not allow any criticism of our armed forces to go unchallenged. Then it was the turn of the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement, known as ACTA, to take centre stage. ACTA has attracted a great deal of criticism because of the involvement of big business and because of secret negotiations held by the European Commission behind closed doors. ACTA has been rejected by no less than 5 parliamentary committees, and this week it came before the full Parliament. Opposition has been fierce and vocal across Europe, and I have had more phone calls, letters and emails from my constituents over this more than any other subject recently. ACTA would have a number of undesirable consequences, ranging from restricted internet access to denial of affordable medicines to people living in developing nations. All of this in the name of big business interests. Then there was a last-minute attempt to save ACTA by referring it back to yet another committee. I have to tell you that the British Conservatives backed this attempt. However, the day was won and ACTA was put to the sword by an overwhelming vote. A spokesman for the Commission immediately announced that they would continue to try to force ACTA upon us. They have a funny idea of what democracy means. A very hot topic in the UK, and certainly my region, the West Midlands, is reform of the Common Agricultural Policy. In this area, I tend to take advice from the National Farmers Union as well as from individual farmers themselves. At the Three County Show in Malvern recently, I met literally hundreds of farmers, and their comments were foremost in my mind when it came to voting this week on matters to do with the CAP, or the Common Agricultural Policy reform. My team have now been also at the Sheep Show this week, and I've been inundated by farmers wanting to raise matters concerning CAP and the EU in general. Finally, the British government has raised concerns over the millions of euros, or billions of euros, that sit unused in the EU's bank accounts. This is very often money allocated for projects that never actually happened. There is no legal mechanism whereby these funds can be released. There's been a Commission proposal to return at least some of these monies to the Member States. However, a report calling for unspent funds to be put to the EU's budget was passed by MEPs on Thursday. Again, I have to tell you, this report was supported by the British Conservatives. I shall continue to vote in committee and in plenary against all further transfer of sovereignty to the EU. As an independent, I will vote for the repatriation of powers and funds to the UK, and with your help, I will continue to fight for the referendum that we all deserve. Thank you and goodbye.